Tokyo Revengers is so good. I can understand the hype behind the Source Readers really trying to promote this one before it came out. The idea of time travel, it's something that I feel like in the early 2010s, when you had stuff like Steins Gate and stuff, time travel was a big thing in anime, and then it kind of died down, and whenever it comes back, it's not that engaging, or it's not good enough that you can say, I understand your mechanic, and you're not going too far with your mechanic. To have a simple idea that, from my understanding anyway, like right now, the handshake between the brother and Takemichi is how he can go forward and backwards in time. He'll go exactly 12 years ahead or back when he shakes his hand, but if we remember, that only happened after he changed the future with the brother, after he gave the words of advice and the handshake. It seems like that was a trigger, so I'm very curious and I'm very excited to see. As our boy changes more things about the future, would a handshake between anyone that he's changed the future of be able to let him go forward and backwards, or will be simply limited to the brother? Either way, it's a good mechanic. It's something that's not just like, oh, just shake hands with anyone. No, we know he's had a very prominent role in his life, so the idea that he's changed this kid's future makes total sense that he could go forward and backwards. In a man who's had nothing but time to study the idea of what this man could be doing, it makes sense how he came to these conclusions. And what I really like about Takemichi as a protagonist is he's someone who you understand why he wants to run away, and you also understand why he decides not to run away at the end of the episode. A character who literally had to abandon his family, his friends, his girlfriend at the time, because he was scared for his life because this gang was too much to bear. You can't really judge the guy for wanting to get out alive. And when he starts to question, like, why should I even save her? She's not my girlfriend in 12 years. I hardly even know her. We probably were only dating for a short while. What's my obligation? Why can't I just go back, have a normal, happy life? But he recognizes that, one, the relationship that he has, even if it's a brief one, is enjoyable. The thing that sucks is everything surrounding the gang and everything like that. So for him, he's saying, well, this girl doesn't deserve to die, and maybe by changing the future, I won't end up alone. But the biggest thing is, like, if he goes back 12 years in the future, he has nothing waiting for him. He has a dead job, dead apartment, like everything sucks about it. So he's kind of trapped in his zone of, does he suffer in the past to hopefully have a better present, or does he just go back to his deadbeat life that isn't that great? And honestly, him getting pushed in front of a train was probably the most exhilarating thing that happened. It's one of those situations where, I mentioned in my first impressions, generally when you have those quote-unquote loser characters who have nothing going on for them, their sob story isn't all that relatable or something that you admire, because you're looking at them saying, you put yourself in that situation. You decided to not socially engage with other people. You decided to not get a job, this or that. This kid did nothing really wrong. He just got roped into a bad situation that he couldn't escape from. And when he did, at that point, he's had no social skills to really improve his life. It's that type of like bravery, that courage that he's never had. And now that he has a true honest-to-go shot, a situation that was going to put his friend in the hospital to near death, he did the dumbest but maybe arguably the bravest thing. He challenged the king versus slave. And honestly, I have no idea where we're going next week. Side of me wants to say the fight's not going to happen because how the hell would he survive it? But on the flip side, we saw this man beat him with a baseball bat for simply saying the name of one of the leaders of the Manji gang, and even if he fights him, I don't see how he could lose to the point of death, because how could the story continue, right? But I'm very curious to see if this will be enough to make this man look at him as not maybe a pushover, but maybe as someone who maybe deserves a shot at being more than a slave. It kind of feels like that's how you work your way up in these gangs, is you have to show your strength, and maybe by challenging the king, the most stupid and foolish thing you could do, maybe if he lands a punch on him, that will be enough to say, you're a weakling, you are nothing in comparison to me. But maybe you deserve a shot at being more than a slave, and if he's more than a slave, maybe he'll be able to do things for his friends. It's an interesting concept, and I'm glad that they're not hiding away and shying away from the brutality of these gangs, because a lot of times when you get these punk anime, where you have these punks who are delinquents, you know, when they beat up people, and maybe it's a punch to the head. Here, we literally watched our character get stomped on. I'm surprised he didn't break a rib, to then getting a baseball bat to the back. How many times that even the delinquents who we thought were scumbags had to pull the bigger scumbag away, recognizing like he's gonna kill him, and that's too far. I think there's a lot of potential with the narrative here, and I still love the idea that even in the face of so much brutality, they do find ways to make it humorous. Like the simple idea of like when they're studying before he goes back in time, he's talking about like, what should we do? And he's like, I just want to go to bed, I'm tired. And there's comedic relief there. Or even just the simple idea of these kids, when they're not getting their ass handed to them, they have humorous moments. I mean, the flashback before he enters the fight club, he's trying to figure out what's going on as he recognizes that he's about to get his ass handed to him. There's just so much originality with mechanics that generally make your eyes roll, because a lot of times authors, when they use time travel, they don't cover up their tracks enough, or they do the even worse thing, they cover them up too much where it becomes a convoluted mess. Tokyo Revengers says, hey, we saw that this man changed this kid's future, and a handshake is seemingly the trigger. You can go back and forward 12 years, vice versa. Whatever day you're on, 12 years in the past, 12 years in the future. It's a good mechanic. It's not something that can really be abused, and you can see the possibility of it expanding even past him, because if we have more and more triggers that we help more people and their futures are changed, that could be a way to go forward and backwards. It'll be interesting to see if he goes forward and backwards all that much, because there could be points where he's very much stumped. He doesn't know what to do. He goes forward in time, he asks for some help, goes backwards. As long as it actually is 12 years forward and backwards every single time, it's a good way that you could use it in an engaging way and not ever let it go boring, because a lot of times when you have isekais, time traveling shows, all these other types of formulas, once it happens, it stays like that. But I think one of the bigger appeals to episode 1 was that he went backwards in time, but then he went forward in time. So I do hope that we get to see more of content like that, because by having the ability to do that without it feeling like an abused mechanic, there's so many ways to give this kid an edge or maybe screw him around. As we saw, he went backwards in time and he was in a fight club. You don't exactly know where you're going to be going back to, nor where you're going to be going to, right? There's so many ways for the show to just continue to impress me, and yeah, I can understand the comment I keep seeing, like, peak new gen shonen. It's such a good show. It's familiar, but it's also original, and I love the gritty aesthetic. I love the character designs. I love the music. The opening and the ending songs just bring an episode to this nice open and close package. This show, there's so many good shows on Saturday, but Tokyo Revengers I don't think is going to be a show that I could easily sweep under the rug. I feel like it matches the quality of all the great shows I'm watching this day, and really this season. I think the thing that has me the most curious but fearful as well, this is a type of brutality we've seen in 2 episodes. Once we get into the big dog leagues, years down the line when guns and probably much more violent things are involved, what type of brutality is he going to be involved in, either to himself, to his loved ones, or he'll have to direct towards people? This is clearly a show that's not afraid to say gang life is not something you should be worshipping, and it's showing you some pretty violent things while knowing when to sprinkle in some humorous, just so you don't, want to throw up. You're like, I'm really intrigued, but I'm also really fearful of where this could go. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts and feelings, though, on this week's episode down below. Definitely your theories and speculations on the mechanics and where you think it might go in the future, especially considering how this episode ends. Do you think the fight's going to happen, and if so, where's it going to go? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.